extremely excited about my new videotape project, which I call Marco Lala's Video Encyclopedia on Effective Kicking. Now, in order to bring you the most accurate representation and clear-cut instruction on how to kick, I've thrown nearly 30,000 kicks in the production and recording stages of this videotape series, and this was all done within a 6-week period. Now, one of the main reasons for the production of this videotape series is to destroy some of the misconceptions that are associated with kicking. Now, one of the main misconceptions, which comes about through the proliferation of martial arts videos today, is how lethal kicks are. Now, usually when you see kicks demonstrated in a tournament scene or something like that, you have a half a dozen students surrounding the master, and as they come charging in, he throws one kick to totally incapacitate that person. Now, we all know that this rarely happens in a fight. If you've watched boxing or kickboxing matches, you've seen literally hundreds of kicks and punches thrown to an opponent with no clear-cut results. So imagine this going on the street. It would just have no self-defense value. So what has to come into play is timing and proper training methods in order to deliver kicks effectively. Now, another misconception is you cannot become a master kicker in 4 weeks. This is absolutely impossible. Just the sheer number of kicking techniques and the angles of delivery and even the variations of the same kick would make it impossible to truly learn numbers of kicks, large numbers of kicks, and to use them effectively. Also, what I wanted to stay away from on this video is saying that these are all my requirements from white belt to black belt. Because we all know that black belts will use what they learned as a white belt most effectively on the street, meaning the basics are what's most important. So on here I'm giving you a very, very thorough understanding of the basics, particularly in the first tape of the series on how to chamber kicks, how to use the correct part of the foot, and proper applications of the techniques. The training variations, the live application footage that I have on this video is going to really give you an idea of how to use kicks effectively. I think you're going to enjoy this tape. Now, it's true, if you've watched my knockout video, you would think I would be contradicting myself, since a good 50 to 75% of the matches ended with one kick, or the rest of the matches ending with setups, kicks, and then ending with hand techniques and so forth. But what's critically important is that it does take a significant amount of time to properly master kicking techniques. What I wanted to do on this tape is create the blueprints so that you can follow in order to apply the kick correctly. Now, many of my other videos may indirectly help you in this area. For example, my stretching tape, even my low kicking series, which brings out a whole different area of kicking. But on these tapes, I wanted to show you how to properly chamber kicks, how to deliver kicks, what parts of the foot to use. So it's going to be considerably different from some of the other video projects that I've used. I'd like to begin with a brief discussion on the proper striking surfaces of the foot when you're performing kicking techniques. Now, the first part I'd like to discuss is the top part of the foot, which also includes the shin area, which I elaborated more on the low kicking video. I also have it directly above the ankle and right at the instep. These are the three primary areas when using the top part of the foot and the shin. The next striking area, some arts actually use the toes. Now, what I did here was really to signify the position of the foot when you have shoes on or a very firm pair of sneakers. That can be very effective into the groin area. As you move into the side of the foot, the knife edge, notice the double X's on the heel and the single X. These are the various areas of the knife foot. The double X area is much more stronger for proper side kicking techniques. This area may cause slight injury to the smaller bones of the foot, but it can be practical with good footing on. This area here also, with a good pair of shoes or sneakers, can be very effective, but it can lead to small injuries to the bones. Next is the ball of the foot. Notice directly below the big toe. This area is very effective for roundhouse kicks or front kicks. The flat of the foot can be used for stomping or pushing type kicks, and also the bottom heel for downward type strikes. Next, let's move to the heel. What I've shown first is the tendon, which can cause some serious damage if hit with a kick, or if used in kicking can cause damage to you, losing your footing and balance. So please be careful. Do not use that area. What you want to focus on are the various sides of the heel, the bottom heel, the two sides left and right, and the top of the heel, or the rear heel. Next, we're going to look at what we call the crescent, or the inside part of the foot. Again, please be careful. The higher up on the foot towards the toes you go, the more tendency there is for possible damage to the small bones. Looking at another angle, when you perform crescent kicks, you may land on the outside part of the ball, as you can see on the X to the left, or even the heel. Here's another way of keeping the toes tightly held together to prevent potential injury when performing the crescent kick. Now, all these kicks will be further elaborated on as we get into the material. Also, I would like to discuss briefly the pivoting action that occurs with all kicks. Now, you can see the foot, the pivot action, there's a certain range of motion. Okay, notice here, these are on roundhouse kicks. There is a considerable amount of pivoting going on the ball of foot. You do not want to pivot on your heel. You want to pivot on the ball. Also, keep in mind, even in a kick as the front kick, there is pivoting action going on, but not as elaborate. Here's a fully extended roundhouse kick, almost going to 180-degree pivot. This one here, this short pivot, could be for the front kick. Traditional training stance for kicking. What I'd like to do here is throughout the video is show you how we practice the kicks traditionally. This position here is very important so that you do not use the arms for balance. What you're doing is learning how to use the hip. This kick here, the front high kick, the knee is kept straight and the hip is brought to the chest. This whipping action helps both muscles from the top and the rear part of the leg. You do not want to just kick up and drop the leg down. You want to cause a whipping action, bringing the kick straight up and then back down quickly. Kicking the chest with the thigh area. Again, I try not to use my hands with all the basic traditional kicks so that I learn how to use my hips properly. Again, notice how the top of the thigh hits the chest area as I keep my back straight. Again, the slight pivoting action going on with the front high kick. Knee straight and the whipping action returning the kick back down. As we look from the front and side at the full extension, notice again the top of the thigh striking the chest area. Notice also the pivoting action of the left foot. Notice again the pivot is on the ball of foot, as you'll see throughout the videotape. From the front view, you can more clearly see the slight pivot on the front high kick. Notice how my right foot pivots on the ball at the extension of the kick and then back. Now we'll move into an up and down version that I use in the class. Each time the kick is thrown, it is brought towards the rear foot and then slid forward. Again, watch, kick, bring back, then step. Kick, back, step. Kick, back, step. These up and down motions help you to really use the kicks in your fighting action. Now I move to the next kick. Again, notice the traditional position, holding the belt. And now I'm executing the front kick. Some key points here. Again, the pivoting action. When I'm practicing the kick right now in the standing position, notice how my feet are already at a slight angle. That's where the pivoting would end. Knee comes up, and then I push out, striking with the ball of foot. One of the most important points with the front kick is the hip extension. Notice as the kick is extended, I'm pushing my hip forward. For example, when I'm throwing the right front kick, I will use my right butt cheek to push the kick out. You'll see this more clearly. Now from the front, you notice the alignment of the knee to the chin. This is kind of like setting the sights on a rifle when I'm throwing the kick. So you see the knee, chin, and foot alignment. Also the bent knee. At the extension of the kick, notice the ball of foot is signified directly below the chin area. Now, from the side, notice the hip extension. Right now, my pelvis is parallel to the wall in front of me. With the front kick, you want to bring the knee up as high as possible. Again, notice the hip being pushed slightly forward towards the kick. On the extension, you can see the full pushing forward of the hip area. My right buttocks is completely forward. Slightly bend the knee and ball of foot action. And then, of course, as in all kicks, the rechambering. Now, what you want to do at the chamber position is keep your foot tight just before you strike. You'll notice here, each time I kick and step, I rechamber the leg. I'm almost kicking myself in the butt with the heel as I bring the leg back. Bring the foot back, and then strike. Now here's a little freestyle motion. I'm working front kicks off the back leg and the front leg. Notice the skipping action as I perform the front leg and rear leg kicks. Also switching the feet and including head movement, bobbing and weaving. Again, changing from front leg to rear leg. You want to be able to execute both types of kicks. Notice here also a slightly angled front kick. I'm using skipping and jumping motions in order to redirect the front kick. You also notice a lot of switching the stance from right foot to left foot front and then throwing lead leg and reverse leg kicks. If you must, you can rewind and stop different portions of this tape so you can fully appreciate the kicking techniques. Again, notice here the slight angle changes when I perform the front kick. It's not just straightforward. There might be almost a slight roundhouse type of aspect to it, as you'll see later on from the roundhouse kick. Now, as I perform the kick on the bag, you'll more fully appreciate why it's important to raise the knee up high. The knee must come up high so that you can drive the kick straight in. It does not hit on an arcing or circular motion. Again, I'm working the various footwork motions, switching, lead leg, reverse leg. You'll notice here, when I missed the bag with the kick, what happened was the knee didn't come up high enough, so the arc was incorrect. You want to be able to drive the foot in a straight line. Try to work various distances and angles when you perform this kick. Notice there, when I missed the bag, the kick arched upward. It didn't go straight in. This is extremely important for the front kick. In application, you'll see the front kick as a very effective weapon. Right there, you can definitely see the reach advantage of using the leg as opposed to the arm. He's using a lead leg front kick versus the jab. Here you'll see a very quick lead leg technique. Right there, I've seen actual fights end with that simple movement right there, lead leg front kick into the solar plexus. Timing is crucial with this technique. Notice here now, as he throws the front kick, he caught me with the lead leg. But what happens is, when he tries to use footwork applications, he gives away movement. He switches his foot and then throws the kick, giving me distance to block. So remember, timing is very crucial when using the front kick. Moving to a next front kick example. He used the front kick to lead or set up his hand techniques. Lead leg front kick into a jab and a reverse punch follow-up. So remember, kicking can be led towards hand techniques, not just a means to an end. The next movement will be the groin kick. Notice again here, the knee comes up slightly lower than the front kick. My toes are pointing downward so that I strike with the instep. Watch the transition from one leg to another, the smooth motion, also the pointing downward of the toes and the rechambering. Again, all of these movements in my karate uniform are what I call the traditional manner of training with these kicks. This is very important. It's just like learning the alphabet. Again, notice the alignment, instep, knee, and chin. This alignment between the knee and chin is critical for kicking techniques towards the front, especially for beginners who are trying to perfect the motion of the kick. Again, as we watch from the side, notice at the chamber, my toes are pointing downward. I'm already thinking about the striking surface, then the extension, and then of course the rechamber, so that you can kick again or go into a fighting stance and follow up with techniques. Now we use the up and down version. I'm using the rear leg for the groin kick. Again, you don't want to bring your knee up as high as you would for the front kick. This is not as necessary. The front kick is usually targeted towards the solar plexus. The groin kick is below that area. Now you'll notice a slight variation. I'm kicking off the front leg. This is probably more practical in a fighting situation where the lead leg is used as probably the closest weapon to the target. So it's lead leg, kick, step. Lead leg, kick, step. Now we're looking at the groin kick from a natural position, which would probably occur in a fighting situation. Try to learn how to aim the kick to different directions. You may deal with multiple attackers, so you want to be able to throw the front kick and the groin kick effectively to these different angles. Now we're looking at the groin kick off the lead leg and the reverse leg. Notice the skipping action again, very similar to the front kick. The major change is the striking area, the surface area of the foot. Always hands up, smooth transitions from one foot to the other when you practice this in the freestyle mode as I'm doing here. Try to work on combinations off the same leg and combinations off both legs. Here's an interesting way to practice the groin kick. Again, from the neutral position, hands on my hip, I'm snapping out some groin kicks. Then I'll work into a more fighting variation of it, hands up, using the lead leg and the reverse leg. Here's an interesting drill. When he holds out his left hand, you use your left kick, and vice versa. As he switches, it could help you to develop good reflexes. Try to work as many combinations as possible so that it's more difficult for you when he makes the change, rather than just sitting there waiting for him to change the mitt. Again, focusing on the striking area, which is the instep when it comes to the groin kick. This next segment will show the knee kick. Now, the next couple of kicks I'm going to briefly describe since they're thoroughly covered in my low kicks and knee attack tape. One of the major points here is that the knees strike the chest area and the toes are pointing downward. Again, notice the traditional manner of not using the hands with the kick. This is important so that you learn how to use your lower body as much as possible when performing the kick, so that in a real fighting situation, when your hands come into play, your balance is much better off. Again, notice I try to keep my back straight as possible, and I snap the knee kick upwards towards the chest. Now we're looking at the roundhouse knee kick. Again, notice you see the hips more into play here than with the straight knee kick. What's crucial here is that your landing position when you rechamber is at the pivot point, so that you can go back and forth from right to left. As you look from the side, you can see also how the shoulders come into play and the hip extension that I mentioned in the front kick. Again, notice the toes pointing downward and the knee striking the chest area. The roundhouse knee kick, notice how the knee comes from the outside. Now, stepping motion. As I hit the chest each time, I step forward. Again, you want to practice this both ways. Just like we learn the alphabet again, we learn letters, words, sentences, paragraphs. This is what must be done to properly master kicking techniques. Now what I'm doing here is moving into freestyle variations of the knee kick. Again, just to follow the line of kicks here, I included the knee kick. What I always try to do is work both lead leg and reverse leg. This involves a lot of switching, footwork motions, setups, skipping in, and so forth. Notice the up and down motion of the roundhouse knee kick. What you want to do is each time you want to bring that knee past your center line. You bring it outside and then across the body. You can see that more clearly here. As I bring the knee up, I'm coming across my center line. This movement here will also aid in performing proper roundhouse kicks. You want to try to really get that knee across the body as you keep your leg chambered. Again, notice how I'm trying to combine a little bit of head movement in there with the footwork as I throw both lead and reverse leg roundhouse knee kicks. Now put a little bit together on the heavy bag. Notice the straight and roundhouse knee kicks. I'm also working different heights, can go into the thigh area or the solar plexus. Remember, my destructive low kick and knee attack videos thoroughly cover this aspect of fighting. What I wanted to do here is give you a breakdown of how to throw each kick properly and master them so that you can continue improving. As we move into application footage, you'll see how difficult it really is to use kicking techniques. It's not like it is in the movies. Now, keep an eye on number 2, the person to your right now, as he swings around. You'll notice an opening for the knee kick, and he drives it in as he grips the gi. Very difficult technique to use, but can be very effective when the opening is made available. Now we move into the roundhouse kick. The roundhouse kick can use various parts of the foot, the shin, the top of the foot or the instep, and also the ball of foot. Usually I like to practice with the ball of foot because 9 times out of 10 I'll probably get into a fight with shoes on rather than in the dojo. So I want to use the point of the foot. Now as we look from the side, you can see how I bring my knee up and swing it around for the roundhouse kick. Again, you'll see the extension also in the hip and buttock area. Again, maintaining the hands on the belt. Notice here at the chamber position, the knee is coming across the body, as I described previously with the knee kick. And the extension of the kick, slight bend in your supporting leg, the pivot, and also the kick finishing past your center line. As we look from the side, again, you see the chamber position. Here, at that point, you would position the striking surface, whether it be the ball of foot or the instep. The extension and then the rechamber. Keeping in mind also the pivoting action. Now as we go into up and down variation, notice how each time I'm using the balance of my arms now as opposed to the traditional fashion. Each time pivoting and extending the kick beyond center line. Now we're looking into a little bit of freestyle. Notice here I'm bringing the knee straight up and then across. The only drawback to this is in the power, but the speed is much, much faster this way. What you want to try to do is get a happy medium between a powerful kick, bringing the knee up, and slightly towards the front for the speed. Also, I work extensively on the lead leg round kick. Even though I probably wouldn't go to the head on the street, lead leg round kicks to the groin area and to the knee can be very effective. I'm also using different angles, switching footwork, hands up, and combinations. Next is the bag. Now what's important is the rechamber here. You don't want to just keep your foot out there, hanging out there. A good fighter will grab it, work you into a takedown position or whatever, block and counter. Always try to work on the rechamber, especially in combination kicks, as you see there. Here you're looking at the extension. You're visualizing crossing that center line when you perform the kick. Now again, notice the pattern here. I show you the kick in the traditional fashion, then moving up and down, freestyle version, and then bag application. This is the formula to developing effective kicks. Here in application footage, you can see what I was just talking to you about previously, the low roundhouse kick to the groin area. You notice the delayed reaction on the opponent. Although it was illegal, you can see how effective the technique was. Next we'll move into a very quick action here. Roundhouse kick, notice the arms down and immediately caught. That's why your hands must be up all the time. This is where your freestyle training comes in. Again, notice the hand come down or drawn down here and then followed up with the roundhouse kick. So it's critical when you're practicing the freestyle application, keep your hands up. Here notice a quick combination here with the lead leg roundhouse kick. Again, this comes from the variations in your freestyle practice, lead leg, reverse leg. Again, here you'll notice a step back and then lead leg roundhouse kick. This all stems from your freestyle training and creating fight scenarios. Notice here the fighter on the left, as he swings around, sneak in the roundhouse kick. Fortunately, he used a lot of control when it landed on the cheek. Here we're looking at various combination, lead leg, reverse leg, and then lead leg again. In that instance, we use the shin. Now we move into the next traditional version, the side high kick. This movement here is more or less an exercise. Although I've seen boards broken in this fashion, held downward, it's not so much a fighting applicable kick. What's important when performing the side high kick here is that you keep your heel in line with your body. You do not want to swing it over to the front. Each time I swing up, I'm pushing the heel out, extending the knife edge as described in the beginning of the video. Notice here, the bottom X and then the X on my heel. There's an alignment there. My foot does not go where the other X is extremely to the right. That would be out of alignment. If we look again from this position here, you'll notice an alignment between the heel and the hip. The heel does not extend forward to the right. This is critical for adding power into the side kick. You want your whole body into the kick, as you'll see here. Again, by holding the belt, you're not using your upper body for balance. So this is helping you to use your legs more effectively when practicing the side kick. Each time there's a pivot, chamber, and then striking with the heel. Remember, the knife foot, there's certain variations of it. You can use the top part of the knife edge or the heel part. The heel part, I believe, is much more effective. When performing the side kick, try to hold a kick for a split second. Don't just snap it out there and drop it quickly. Notice again from the side, I hold the kick for a split second. One. Split second hold it. That's going to help you develop proper kicking application. Now let's look at a time lapse of the side kick. We get into position 1, which is the chamber. Immediately here you should be positioning your foot for the knife edge or tightening the toes up. At the extension, again notice pushing the hip into the kick, bringing the toes back, and then the re-chamber. Each time keeping the alignment of hip and heel. The next kick we work on is the low side kick or knee joint kick. Notice when I raise the leg up into the chamber position, it's closer to the opposite knee. This makes it travel at a faster and further distance. Notice the snapping out on the last 10 of these 20 kicks. What's critical is the re-chamber after the extension there. Now looking from the side, again, you can more clearly see the alignment of the heel, hip, and shoulder. The kick doesn't shoot out towards the front. Each time I turn and look at the target area that I'm striking. Notice the pivoting action in the low side kick. Now we move into the up and down. This is the traditional version of practicing this movement in the horseback stance, chambering and then shooting the kick out, rechambering, and then going back into the stance. It's a very tough workout, too, on the legs. Now I move into a more freestyle version of this kick. As I go into the fighting stance, I raise the knee up as I'm going to throw a front kick and then pivot on my support foot, shooting the side kick out. Again, notice the pivoting action occurring right at the execution of the kick. Now, from a freestyle point of view, again, what I'm showing you here is what a lot of people do when they throw the side kick. They reposition their whole body and change their stance. This is actually suicidal in a real fight. Your objective is to be able to throw all kicks from one stance so that you do not change your positioning. As I do here, my normal left foot front fighting stance and shooting the side kick out. I'm showing you from both, again, the lead leg and the reverse leg. As you see it from this slight angle, you'll see the alignment of the heel and hip so that I do not kick out in front of me, and also how I get the hip into the kick. There's a lot of material here, so I want you to review this thoroughly. Again, on the bag, notice why the kick has to go out directly to the side, so that my heel is in line with the hip, so I can get my whole upper body into the side kick. The side kick is a very difficult kick to use in a real fight. You usually see it in movies because it's very exciting to watch. It's very impressive when somebody throws a high side kick, but it's very difficult to use in a real fighting situation, especially when someone is boring in on you. Now I move into an application of the side kick. What I'm doing here is showing it to the knee joint. What I'm doing is off the rear leg, chambering, and then shooting out. Again, notice the extensive pivoting of my support foot. I'm almost aiming my heel into the target area of my support foot. Now, as I did with the groin kick, a lead leg joint kick. Again, notice kick, then step. So the motion starts with the kick. Kick and step. Kick, step. The stepping is the end of the technique. Start kick, then step forward. Notice the chambering again after the kick. Now we'll see a more neutral position use of the low side kick. You could be talking to somebody, or you sense a threat or verbal dialogue going on that may lead to a physical attack. You use a lead leg, low side kick. Now, most self-defense articles show this as the devastating kick that's going to knock the opponent down and everybody goes home happily ever after. But this probably would not happen in a real fight. This is probably a good setup so that you can follow up with more techniques, maybe work into the grappling scenario, or use knees and elbows. In the real world, one kick may not do it unless all the elements are correct. Notice here, sparring my little brother, he tried to use the low side kick even though it was illegal to my knee joint to stop my oncoming attack. In this situation here, notice the fighter on the right, how he sets off and then follows up with the side kick. But notice again, there had to be a preparation, a preliminary movement to set up the side kick because it's very difficult to use. Now we'll go into variations of the back kick here. Notice again the hands on the belt so that I do not use the upper body for balance. This kick is very difficult to practice alternating from one foot to the other. Now the key is when you throw the kick, try to hit the same point to the rear. You'll notice that my kick doesn't vary that much when I'm kicking towards the camera. I'm almost kicking the same point with both feet. The striking surface here is the bottom portion of the heel, the toes pointing on a downward angle. There is a chambering action going on as you throw the kick, which you'll see from the side. Slight chamber and then execution of the back kick. All these preliminary kicks here will lead to the more complicated kicks on tape 2.
It is essential here that you work on the alternating method to improve your balance and delivery of the kick. One thing you want to avoid when throwing the back kick is not swinging the leg out too wide. Notice here how the opponent snuck in on the inside and was able to throw the attacker off balance. What you want to do is, at the spin, you want to drive the kick straight back. This you'll see more clearly here. What I'm doing now is performing a 360-degree pivot on my front leg as I drive the straight back kick. The striking surface is the heel. Now what's critical is, at the pivoting point, you want to bring your upper body around just as fast. If you ever notice ballerinas turn, they turn their upper bodies very quickly. This is what you want to do when you perform the back kick. Again, notice the pivot, body twist, and then driving the kick straight back. Remember, heel straight back and not swinging outside so that your opponent can sneak in. Now with the opposite leg, again, you can see the pivoting action off the lead foot, the body twist, and then driving the kick straight back. In this time-lapse shot, you'll notice here the front foot straight and then a complete pivot 180 degree as you prepare the chamber. As you perform the kick, pushing the heel outward, bending the supporting leg, keeping your hands up. The rechamber, notice now the support leg is turning fully towards the 360-degree pivot. Now, to thoroughly perform the back kick, we must practice the footwork. Notice now the foot that comes to the front is the foot that would be kicking. Notice here my back leg steps sides and then crosses front. Now as I turn, notice again right foot steps side, step. Left foot steps side, step. Right foot steps side, step. That stepping motion is taking place of the kick right now so that you're thoroughly familiar with this spinning action. This spinning action is what most beginners have difficulty with as they lose their balance when they turn. A closer look at what I was talking about. As you step side, pivot, and step. Step side, pivot, and step. Step side, pivot, bring your back foot to the front. Again, this movement is a very good drill to develop the spinning action and the balance that's required for performing good back kicks. I work this movement over and over again with beginners so that they feel comfortable turning and spinning. Now, one of the major problems with back kicks is that when you spin around, this is when most instructors tell you that's when you assess the target area. Turn and look over your shoulder. You'll see this more clearly here when I perform the kick. As I step side, I'm turning, looking over my shoulder, then stepping. Okay, let's stick with the close-up version here. You'll notice my back foot comes across my front foot and then comes to the front. Now as I face the opposite direction, you'll notice the back foot comes across, pivot, and then step forward. Back foot comes across, pivot, then step forward. Practice this movement over and over again. Again, from the full view, coming towards the camera, notice each time as I turn, I'm looking over my shoulder, the same side shoulder of the leg that's coming forward. From here, you notice my left foot comes back and I look over my left shoulder. Right foot, right shoulder. Left foot, left shoulder. Now let's work it with the kicking technique. Notice as I spin around, I perform the kick. Now what you're seeing here is that the stepping side motion is lost. I'm pivoting from my fighting stance. I do not step side. You have to lose that movement in order to make the kick effective. Now from the freestyle point of view, again, I'm practicing the footwork for the back kick. Now notice what I'm doing here is I'm not stepping side, I'm pivoting quickly into the kick. This is more closely resembles the footwork that's involved with the spinning back kick. That's the basic variation that I showed you before. Step side, turn, now losing the step side and going right into the kick. Now moving to various spinning back kicks. Again, what you want to try to do is be able to maintain balance and follow up. Right now I'm following up with other back kicks, but of course you can follow up with combinations. One thing to keep in mind when performing the back kick is you never use this as a setup or lead technique. It just takes too long to perform. Now notice here when I spin, most instructors say this is when you look at the target after the spin. You turn, assess the target, and kick. This is actually impossible in a real fight. The time that you have to assess the target is right now, while you're facing him. That whole spin there, you do not know where your opponent's going to be. You're going to have to determine within a split second where your opponent is and then perform the back kick. You can't turn, look, then kick. That'll never happen in a real fight. That's why you see several people do it blindfolded. What they do is they know where the target is at the outstart of the kick and then perform the back kick. You cannot determine where your opponent is while you're spinning. It must be all done within a split second at the point of the beginning of the kick. Now, as we look in the application footage here, you'll see again how not to throw a back kick. Again, you notice how it didn't come straight back and the fighter snuck in and took the opponent down. You notice here, number 7, a strong spin and driving the kick straight back. Notice again, the spin and then straight back. There was no chance for the opponent to sneak in around the kick behind the knee. Again, notice here, after the front kick setup, then the back kick. Again, straight in so that the opponent cannot come in from the inside. Notice here now, after a deflection and then following up. The spin is critical in this. You must assess the target and then spin. There's a large amount of information on this video, so you may want to look at it one more time before we go to Volume 2 with many more complex and advanced kicking techniques. Before I continue with the instructional portion of this video, I want to explain a very effective yet inexpensive way to work on improving your kicking techniques. As you can see here, I'm using a chair in order to practice the proper chambering of my front kick. Now notice how high I bring up the knee. You want to bring this up as high as possible, again, to be able to drive the ball of foot straight through into the target rather than arching in a curve-like fashion. You notice here, I'm making the commitment in rechambering back over the chair so that my beginning and ending chamber is the same. Also, I'm holding the kick for control and proper extension when I'm performing the kick at full speed. This is a good exercise also for balance and also toning up the legs. Now keep in mind when practicing the kick all the points I've covered previously, the pivoting, the alignment between the knee, ball of foot, and chin, and so forth. The second variation is kicking off the front leg. Okay, the previous kick I worked off the back leg only. Now what I'm doing is practicing the chamber with the front leg, minimizing the amount of movement involved. Again, notice when I perform the kick that I hold it for a split second. This is very important for proper extension when performing the kick in a live application. Everything comes into play here, your shoulders, your hips, also your foot positioning. Each time, focus on bringing the toes back and really extending the ball of foot. Here I'm doing repetitive kicks while balancing on one leg. Next, we work into the side kick. Notice when I chamber, I immediately tighten my foot up. I do not want to keep my feet loose here. I'm preparing for the attack. Practice a few times getting that chamber up there, bringing that knee up as close as possible to your chest area. At the extension, hold 1 second and then back down. Again, by putting the chair there, it's going to make you chamber or rechamber properly without hitting it. Kicks without chambers are susceptible to being grabbed or much more easier for your opponent to push you off balance. That's why we work the chamber. It's very important. Now I move the chair to a 45-degree angle so that I can work the roundhouse kicks. Initially, I try to work on proper chambering into the roundhouse position. This is also very similar to the roundhouse knee kick. Again, notice the foot with the toes pointing downward. This movement right here has many variations, can lead into the roundhouse kick with the ball of foot, the instep, the shin kick, the roundhouse knee kick, and so forth. Notice the pivoting and now the balancing. Each time, try to practice with good form. Now I move it to the other side. Again, 45-degree angle, switching to left foot front stance. Working the chamber position, bringing the knee across the center line. This has to occur when you perform the roundhouse kick. Notice I'm exaggerating the hip action, getting the hip into the kick. This is crucial for power in the technique. I'm also making a conscious effort of keeping my hands up when I'm performing the kick. You can also use the chair on the heavy bag. I've seen various devices made put in front of the bag so that when you kick and it brings back, it can cause pain or cutting of the foot in some schools. But the chair is probably the simplest and most least expensive version of this training equipment. You do not want your foot to hit the chair on the way back down. Again, this training is very important to develop the basic application of the individual kicks so that your combinations can be very effective. Now we go into a different training method or training tip, and that's using a basic staff for balance. Here again, I'm working the roundhouse kick. Notice now I have the toes coming back for the ball of foot application of the roundhouse kick. Then I work into the side kick. This allows me to kick higher and also hold the kick a little bit longer so that I can work on the extension. Now let's move into an explanation of ground fighting kicks. These kicks are more commonly seen in those rape prevention courses for women because the legs are much stronger than men's upper bodies in a rape situation, but they're also very effective for any type of fighting encounter. Here I'm performing a basic front kick motion while in the prone position. Again, notice the hands up, bringing the ball of foot into the extension. The other leg is bent so that my foot is not susceptible to being stomped on or grabbed. Now I'm working a driving heel application of this kick. Notice again the extension of the heel, the base of the heel, or the top of the heel, depending on the positioning of your opponent. This next variation of a ground kick is driving downward with the heel. I'm using a pad here so you can get an idea of the kind of power that can be generated from this technique. Again, notice my opposite leg is bent, my hand's up, and my other hand is supporting me. This is good for maneuverability when I'm on the ground. Also keep in mind, in this type of kick, you can see a chamber occurring, and then an extension, and then a driving down. So there are several elements to this downward heel kick. Now we move into various kicks that involve changing from one foot to the other. Notice here I'm covering my vital points, the groin area, kidneys, and face. What I'm working on here is roundhouse kicks, going from right leg to left leg. Again, notice in the transition, my hands come up, my opposite leg's bent, and I'm performing a proper extension and chambering of the kicks. This variation is the side kick on the ground. Again, notice the transition stage, everything occurring simultaneously on both sides. Bringing back the leg, hands up, protecting the face area. The next version is a hooking kick, where I go outward and then hook in. This could be the beginning of a takedown, also striking the knee or groin area. You want to be able to move into all of these kicks fluidly as you practice them. Just to clarify a little bit about what I mean about the hooking technique, notice the chamber position here. The kick is to the right of the screen, and then it goes across towards the left, striking with the heel as signified here. And then back into a chamber, and then from here you can go into the various other kicks, roundhouse kicks, side kick, or hooking kick. This driving back kick while on the ground on all fours can be a very powerful kick, also the beginning of getting back up to either run away or continue fighting. Notice again driving the heel outward. Here's a good drill just to work on being able to react after a takedown. Now the drill involves me pushing the opponent down, him landing appropriately, and then driving the heel in. This is very important to create distance so that you can get back up to either escape or continue fighting. Notice all the positions there, bent knee and support. Now the downward heel. You can see how I'm moving the mat around the pad so that he can get a better idea of accuracy and maneuverability when performing this technique. Here, I always like to work takedown moves before we get into any type of ground fighting practice. Notice how he's using his legs to keep a distance between myself and him. You'll see various types of techniques, roundhouse kicks, driving in with the heel, heel kicks, also pushing type techniques. Notice how he's using his other hand to maneuver while his other hand is up. All these points have to be kept in mind when practicing these movements. Again, we practice a sweeping motion. And notice again how I try to use my shoulders and arm for maneuverability. I try to keep my other leg bent so that I can perform the techniques. Although it would probably rarely happen, you can see I threw some high kicks there, even from the ground towards the head area. This is basically a training drill to see what you're capable of. Always keeping the hands up and ready for anything. Here you can see how that hooking technique worked into a takedown can also be shot into the groin area. Then using my other hand to get back up, always scooting backwards from the ground fighting position. Now we're back into the traditional motion here. We're going to be practicing what's called an axe kick. Notice here I bring the leg straight up as in the front high kick and then driving the heel downward. Normally you'll see this thrown into the head or the collarbone, but I think this is much more effective for maybe after throwing a low kick to the groin area and the person bends down and you can drive it towards the back of the head as he's hunched over. Again from the side, notice here I have to bring the leg up as straight as possible so that I can drive the heel downward. When you bring the foot down, don't smash the heel into the ground, but use the ball of foot, where your ankle acts as sort of a shock absorber when the kick hits the ground. Again, don't smash the heel down, but use the ball of foot so that you can soften the contact. In this next segment, we'll look at the axe kick in the time-lapse photography. Notice the traditional position as I bring the leg straight up to the right side of the screen and then back towards the left side. I prepare the heel for the downward action. The next one is very similar to the ground fighting driving heel kick, except it's going on a downward angle. Again, this is also thoroughly described in the destructive low kicks and knee attack video. But for the sake of keeping a smooth, seamless line of kicks on this video, I'm showing it here. Practicing the traditional position. Again, the striking area is the bottom heel. Now as you look at it from the side, you'll notice that the knee doesn't come up quite as high as the front kick or even the groin kick for that matter. This can be used as a stopping type technique while somebody's kicking at you, or a setup motion for other kicks and hand techniques. The next kick, the crescent kick, we're using the outer portion of the foot. Notice again, slightly knee bent in the supporting foot as I swing the leg around, keeping the attacking leg knee straight. I want to come totally across my body from the right side to the left side. Again, I'm not using my hands so that I can get full extension of the hips into the kick. As you can see from the side, when I perform the kick with my right leg, it starts furthest away from the screen and then comes towards the screen, and vice versa with the left leg. It's very important that you perform a smooth transition from one leg to the other. Here again, you'll notice the kick is on the right side of the screen, coming across the body, striking with the outer part of the foot, and then back down. You don't see any chambering in this type of kick. That's why it can be relatively easy to block, so it has to be thrown at the proper time. This is the reverse motion, or the inward crescent kick, using the inward portion of the foot. Again, when we look at it from the side, there's a slight bend of the knee at the extension of the kick so that the rechamber coming back down into the proper position for the next kick. This kick is a little more difficult to throw than the outer crescent kick. Again, notice the knees coming to the outside from the right side of your screen to the left side of your screen, coming across the body. This portion right here is why the kick is very difficult, because there's a controlling factor involved at this portion of the kick. Now we'll look at it in the up and down motion, the outside crescent kick. You notice here that from going inside to outside, your foot lands in a relatively comfortable position for the next kick as you step forward. You'll notice with the outside to inside crescent kick, there's a slight adjustment made when the kick is done, because the leg, the inertia, is going inward. Usually you've seen these kicks done as a defense against a knife, knocking the guy's knife out of his hand or whatever. I wouldn't really use this type of kick for that application, but it can be used as a good setup or a surprise kick while your opponent is caught off guard. Again, you're looking at the various differences of the crescent kick. The ones I've demonstrated first were keeping the knee straight. Now you'll notice a slight variation where I'm actually chambering and snapping the crescent kick out. There's a big difference between these two kicks. Notice again, knee straight and then knee chambered. By chambering the knee and snapping the kick out, it does appear to be much more faster and powerful. This is probably more a fighting applicable kick. Again, I'm working lead leg and reverse leg applications of the kick and then combinations. Again, you'll notice now from outside to inside, same knee straight, coming across. Notice the big arcing movement. Then the chambered version of the crescent kick. Knee comes up and then snapping it out. Big difference between the two kicks. So what was once two kicks, the inward to outward crescent and the outward to inward, all of a sudden becomes four by making a chambered, snapping version of them, and then lead leg, reverse leg, skipping in, skipping back, and then you'll see spinning crescent kicks. So from two basic kicks, we can lead into literally a dozen variations of one kick. Take the spinning kick, for instance. You can keep the knee straight or chamber it and snap it out as I do there, combining lead leg kicks. Now we'll look at a bag application of it. one of the main reasons for working on the bag is so that you reposition yourself. How do you handle the impact so that you can continue fighting? So we start with one kick at a time and then build up to variations of it. I work from a spinning kick now to your basic inward and outward crescent kicks. Also getting the feel of where the kick lands, what part of the foot is used. You'll also notice power differences between inward and outward and spinning kicks. Next we'll move into the hook kick. A very flashy kick, although it can be effective on the street, may leave you susceptible to takedowns and leaving yourself wide open after you rechamber and come back into the position. The objective of this kick is very, very high speed. As the knee comes up, chamber, swing the leg across, striking with the heel. This can also be an ideal kick to the groin area. As we look at it from the side, you can see the leg is chambered, pretty much similar to other kicks. Normally, the kick comes after the hook kick is the roundhouse kick because it's in a perfect chambered position to continue. It's a very difficult kick to master and actually apply in fighting. All the elements have to come into play. Timing, accuracy, speed, proper extension of the hips into the kick, and also slight pivoting of the support foot. Looking at the kick once again in time lapse, notice the chambered position, my knee is towards the left of the screen. As I perform the extension, that's when the leg comes across and down, as you see here. Rechambering and then back into original fighting posture. Let's look at it now in the up and down fashion. You notice now I'm performing it off the rear leg. So I'm stepping, then performing the hook kick. Now we're looking at what we call the spin back kick or spin heel kick. Now notice here, I try to maintain the kicking leg's knee as straight as possible. I'm not hooking the kick. You'll see that later. It's a very wide movement as I spin on my support foot, creating an axis with my leg and body. Again, the hand is up. The spin is very quick here from the fighting position. You want to keep that kicking leg's knee straight so that the aspect is similar to a baseball bat swinging around. This is the spinning hook kick, which has a more whipping action rather than a baseball bat action. Notice how when I spin, the knee gets chambered and snaps out, striking with the heel. A much faster kick, probably not as powerful, but probably has more fighting applicability. Again, the difference is as I spin, the knee is chambered so that I can snap the kick out. So when practicing, keep in mind the difference between the spin heel kick and the spin hook kick. Now I'll move into a time lapse of the spin kick. Notice at the turn, the knee is beginning to chamber. Then full extension. And then the rechamber, or the end of the spin hook kick. Notice the rechambering action there. From here you can follow up with the round kick or whatever. The next movement, as we go up and down, is the spinning hook kick, going from left leg to right leg. Again, left foot front, right spin hook kick, left spin hook kick. Notice how quickly the body spins as I assess the target. Now we're going into freestyle variation, starting with the basic hook kick, then going into the spinning kicks. So we're going from hook kick to spinning hook kick, lead leg and reverse leg. Practice this way gives you very good balance and able to change the directions of the kicks. Now, as I mentioned previously, the hook kick doesn't always have to be towards the head area. Here I'm showing you a hook kick application to the groin. It could be a very sneaky kick, especially if the opponent is standing slightly sideways or pointing at you. Snapping the lead leg hook kick into the groin. Here's another variation of a hooking motion. It's a sweeping technique as I hook around with the heel. I'm using my knee as a spinning point, taking out the opponent's leg. This is normally used versus a kicking technique. Again, here more clearly, you can see the different applications of the spinning kicks. Here I'm keeping the knee straight, swinging the leg around. Notice as I spin, the knee is kept straight and I drive the heel into the bag, using mostly my upper body, waist, and hips to add power into the kick. Notice here the hook kick. It's a slightly awkward kick to throw. That's why it's very difficult to use in a realistic fighting situation. A lot of training and preparation must go into using this kick effectively in real fighting. Here, watch carefully the difference between the hook kick and the straight back kick. Here, spinning kick, keeping the knee straight. As opposed to hooking it. Now we move into the application of that spin kick versus a kicking attack. Here the opponent takes out my supporting leg while I throw a kick. Here you notice that the spin kick was used ineffectively. My distance was off, so I was too far away from the opponent. Now you'll notice here I'm setting up with low kicks, hand techniques, and then applying the spinning kick here, which landed a little more effectively. So distance has a lot to do with the applicability of this kick. And here you'll notice the timing as he came in, driving the spin heel kick into the opponent's temple. Now we'll start getting to a little more flashy kicks. Although these kicks can be used effectively in fighting and have been, they're very good for training your more basic kicking techniques. Here we have what I like to call a tornado kick or 360-degree roundhouse kick, meaning I spin around fully and I use the instep as part of the attack. Again, the objective here is to assess the target immediately and then perform the spinning action followed by the kicking technique. Watch carefully how everything works together. The footwork, the hip action, shoulders, and then extension of the kick. Now we look at it from the side, left foot forward, stepping forward, spinning, and then kicking. Try to practice the motion without the kick first. Get the feeling of spinning and hopping into the position, and then slowly start adding the kick to it. The objective here is your knee comes up high as you throw the roundhouse kick at the end of the motion. Always recover quickly after performing the kicking techniques. Now I'm working with the right leg forward, step across, spin, and then kick. Keep in mind, as soon as you make the step, you're making the commitment. That's when the spin has to come in, and then performing the roundhouse kick. At the extension. Next one, we'll work on it on the bag. Again, practicing the kick individually. You don't want to get too crazy now and work on combination kicks, especially with something like the tornado kicks. One at a time, try to work on the impact, timing, where the kick lands, at what part of the spin, so that you can get a proper landing and then rechambering. Now we're looking at the exact same motion, but now done with the crescent kick. I'm using the outer portion or the inner portion of the foot here. Coming across the body from outside to inside, using the inner portion or the crescent. Now we work opposite side. Notice how I try to perform the kick almost exactly the same on both sides. This alone takes many years of training to be able to perform the kicks on both the right leg and the left leg practically identical. You'll notice that you'll favor one leg more than the other. One may have more power while the other has more accuracy. You want to try to level the two off so that you can perform the kicks effectively from any side. Although you have a key leg, you want to be able to use both. This is a sign of a good fighter. Now we practice it on the bag, the tornado or 360-degree crescent kick. Set up action. And again, you want to practice on where the impact is made, at what part of this spin. Right at the extension point so that you can recoup and recover immediately to continue. One of the primary benefits, though, is that this technique is going to make your basic crescent and roundhouse kicks much, much more effective. Now we get into basic jump kicks, starting with the front kick, or Tobi Maigeri, jump front kick. The most difficult thing when performing the jump front kick is maintaining that proper alignment I mentioned earlier between the knee, foot, and chin. As you perform the jump kick, try to chamber the legs in midair and then applying the proper extension with the hip into the kick, exposing the ball of foot as the proper surface area. The side view more clearly reveals the proper hip action when performing the jumping front kick. Notice my right hip goes from rear to forward as I jump. Now with the right leg forward, you'll notice my left hip, as it comes up, is pushed forward, and then the extension of the kick. Each time, notice my rear leg is chambered as well as my front foot. As we look at it slowly in the time-lapse version, from the standing position, I jump and chamber, bringing my rear hip to the front, chambering my rear leg as well, then executing the front kick, striking with the ball of foot, and then rechambering and landing. From this position here, I can throw other kicks or reposition myself into hand techniques, takedowns, or whatever. Now we work on the jumping roundhouse kick. Same type of aspect here. Since I'm doing a rear leg kick, the rear hip must come up and across to the front. Everything must come into play here between hip action, shoulder movement, proper alignment. Also remember, on the landing, it must be performed as smoothly as possible so that you can recover appropriately. I personally believe the jumping kicks are good training drills to improve your standing kicks. As we look at it from the side again, you'll see how the rear hip is shot forward into the extension of the kick. Can be a very powerful kick, the jumping roundhouse kick. Notice right away, I'm using my knees and ankles as shock absorbers on the landing. This is critical for a smooth recovery. The kicks can be thrown higher without any thought to the landing. But if you're thinking about landing, you must make the adjustments and be able to throw the kick appropriately. As you look at a time-lapse version of the kick, notice at the height, my legs are still chambered, knee coming across the body, and then perform the roundhouse kick. You want to try to get across that center line, just like you did in the standing version. And then the rechamber. Immediately you see my ball of foot touching the ground. Now we're going into the jumping back kick or jumping hook kick. In this case here, there's a chamber right before the extension of the hook kick. Now we look at it with the left foot front variation. Notice again, at the peak of the kick, the legs are chambered and then comes across. In this instance, the striking area is the heel, or the rear heel. Again, we look at it from the side. Jumping kick, bringing the heel across. You may also do the spin hook kick from this position. Jump spin hook kick, or the jump spin heel kick, keeping the knee straight. Again, you see at the peak of the kick, the legs chambered, snapping the hook kick across. Proper landing. Let's look at this slowly again. From this position here, I'm just about to reach the peak of the kick. Chambered. Very explosive, like a coiled spring here, then coming across, striking with the rear of the heel. All along, thinking about the landing and follow-ups. Now I prepare for what I call the jumping back kick. The difference between this kick is that the heel is driven straight through the opponent rather than coming across. You'll see the difference here in the still frame. The kick is thrown straight back. Although not as flashy as the jump spinning hook kick, this kick is very effective. And it doesn't have to be thrown high either. A jumping back kick into the midsection can be an extremely, extremely effective kick. As we look at it from the side again, you'll notice the difference is the kick is driven straight back as opposed to across. Now the concept behind the spinning kicks is that the spin is adding power because of the momentum of the turn. So what you want to do is be able to get that spin quickly. Anytime you turn your back to your opponent, it could leave you vulnerable. So that's why the turn has to be immediate. There you can see the extension of the kick on that still frame. And then the rechamber. So remember, anytime you turn your back, you are potentially vulnerable to your opponent's techniques. Here we're looking at the basic jumping side kick. Again, the key here is that you chamber the legs before you execute the kick while in midair. Notice here the extension of the heel and the kicking foot, and also the chambered leg. Now we're looking at it with the opposite leg. Again, try to work both sides. What you may have to do is, if your left side is the weak side, do twice as many kicks as your right leg. Try to get that medium between both legs. Notice again the chamber and then the extension with the heel. Let's look at this in the time lapse. You see the preparation. At the peak, the chambering, and then notice how the heel is extended in the kicking leg and the opposite leg chambered. We'll also get into the jumping split kick or the scissors kick. Although it's intended for two people, again, I feel these are more practical for training purposes. I would want to deal with multiple attackers, probably slightly different, but notice again the chamber at the peak of the jump, and then the extension of the kick striking with the knife edge or heel of one foot and the ball or heel of the other foot. When practicing kicks, an interesting drill to keep in mind is the scarecrow drill derived from the wrestling circles. What you want to do is be able to arbitrarily pick striking areas on your opponent's body. You want to be able to hit vital points without much thought. What you do is work in your basic kicks, the front kick, the groin kick, the low side kick, and then eventually start circling your opponent as you assess various target areas on his body. You'll see here side kicks to the ribs, ball of foot round kick, and spinning heel kicks to the solar plexus, attacks to the thigh, floating ribs, back of the knees, again floating ribs, hook kicks either to the solar plexus or to the groin, attacking the thigh area with the knees, shins, working the side kick. Many different applications here. An excellent drill to be able to pick and accurately assess target areas on your opponent. Next, we'll get into practicing the jumping kicks on the heavy bag. Here, I just slowly start working into the kicks. The jumping roundhouse kick. Again, trying to keep in mind the recovery, which is crucial when performing jump kicks. You don't want to be able to throw a jump kick and then land on your head or be off balance so that your opponent can recuperate and retaliate. Here I'm working on some basic jumping hook kicks, and then eventually you can put them together. Here I like to work the jumping side kick, trying to maintain the proper execution, extension, heel alignment, and so forth. In this final segment, I want to elaborate on how to develop effective combination kicks. Here I start with the first two kicks, which were the front high kick and the front kick. Notice after the high kick, the leg comes all the way back, and then I perform the front kick. This is very important to understand the difference between using and not using the hip extension into the kick. It's a very difficult drill, but very effective in helping you to improve the front kicks. Next, we move into the front kick with the roundhouse kick. Notice each time after each kick, I bring the leg all the way back. This is important for being able to develop maximum power in delivering your combination kicks. Kick, bring back, kick. Kick, bring back, kick. Keep this in mind as you perform the techniques. Each time, proper hip extension, focus on the striking surface of the foot that's being used, and rechambering. Here, I'm going to show you a double roundhouse kick, but don't do it that way. What I want you to do is after each kick, bring it back again, as I mentioned earlier. You don't want to just be flicking kicks out. You want to be able to get your hip into the action. Double round kick. You can also change the heights. You can go mid-level and high. Mid-level with the first kick, high with the second kick. Now again, see the way I'm practicing the kicks here. For you instructors, this is an excellent way to practice your kicks going up and down the school floor. And you can follow the exact same sequence that I have here, each technique getting progressively harder. For example, here we have a lead leg, low side kick, and a reverse leg, high side kick. Even though these are training drills, I do try to keep a sense of self-defense applicability in here. I would probably initiate an attack with a lead leg, low side kick, and then follow up. Each time, proper hip extension and hip, ankle, heel, and chin alignment. Here we're looking at the lead leg side kick and spinning back kick. Spinning straight back kick. 1 and 2 fighting stance. 1, 2 fighting stance. Lead leg side kick, back leg, spinning back kick. Most of these are 2 kick combinations. We get into 3, 4, and 5 kick combinations also. Here we're looking at the spinning hook kick followed with a roundhouse kick. Very good training drill for balance, speed. Notice again the quick spin around here and then follow up with the roundhouse kick. I'm also bringing the kicking leg back when I perform the technique. Here we're looking at how I prepare combinations. Notice the foot alignment. I'm setting up each pivot into the kick. I start with the back kick, front kick, roundhouse kick, back kick, then turn. Here's those kicks together at full speed. Back kick, front kick, roundhouse kick, back kick, and turn. You can add hand techniques in here, blocking combinations, and you'll be able to develop very exciting and interesting drills for your classroom. Now I work on combination kicks with the pads. Here I'm working on the round kick and the spinning heel kick. The first several kicks are to assess the target area, and then I start working on the power. What happens here, by practicing in the air all the time, you don't know how to react when landing on a target. These pad drills are really good for working on that. The next variation here is a straight back kick with a hook kick followed up with a roundhouse kick. Notice the body control I try to maintain with each kick. If one kick was throwing me off balance, how can I follow up effectively, whether it be with the hands and feet? So again, notice the body control after each kick. Now we move into the final combination here. I'm working on a 4 and 5 kick combination. Again, notice each time the control I try to maintain after each kick. Lead leg round kick, back kick, spinning hook kick, roundhouse kick, then hook kick. It may sound complicated. That's why I want you to go back and thoroughly analyze each individual kick and master them so that you can use them effectively in fighting. Train hard and master the basics.